My daughter sings a lullaby in a language we don't know. I shouldn't have translated it that as a composer. My world is built from sound. I understand the architecture of a melody, the emotional weight of a harmony, the narrative power of a rhythm. Music is the language I use to make sense of the world. It has always been a source of joy, of discovery, of profound beauty. But for the last year, music has become a source of terror. It started with a simple lullaby sung by my 3-year-old daughter, Clara. It was the most beautiful, haunting melody I had ever heard. And it was in a language that, by all rights, she should not have been able to speak. Our life, before the lullaby, was a symphony of quiet contentment. I worked from my home studio, a room filled with instruments and composition software, crafting scores for independent films. My wife, Megan, is a pediatrician, a woman of science and gentle, practical care. Our home in a quiet, leafy university town was our sanctuary, and Clara was our crescendo, a bright, bubbly toddler whose laughter was the main theme of our lives. She was perfectly, wonderfully normal. Then the music changed. It began subtly, as these things so often do. When Clara was just over 2, she started humming. It wasn't the mangled nursery rhymes most toddlers attempt. It was a coherent, complex melody. It was melancholic, with a modal structure that felt ancient, like a forgotten folk song from some windswept, lonely country. The melody alone was a curiosity, a sign of the musicality I hoped she had inherited. I was proud. A few months later, words began to attach themselves to the melody. They were soft, alien sounds, full of gentle consonants and long, breathy vowels. It wasn't baby talk. It was a language. It had syntax. It had cadence. She would sing it mostly when she was tired or sad, rocking back and forth, her eyes half closed. The song was her comfort, her mantra. For us, it was a charming enigma. We called it Clara's Song. We recorded short clips of it on our phones to show bemused grandparents and friends. Isn't she something? We'd say, blissfully unaware of the abyss that was opening up beneath our feet. The shift from curiosity to concern, and then to outright fear, was a gradual crescendo. For me, the turning point came one evening when Clara had a nightmare. I went into her room to comfort her, and she was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face, singing her song with a desperate, heartbreaking intensity. I sat with her, stroking her hair until she fell back asleep. Before I left, I activated the audio recorder on my phone and left it on her nightstand. I told myself it was for professional reasons. I wanted to capture a clean recording of the melody, to analyze its structure. But that was a lie. I needed to hear it without her. I needed to separate the music from the child. The next day, in the sterile, soundproofed environment of my studio, I played it back. Stripped of the context of a child's bedroom, the lullaby was transformed. The melody was profoundly sad, a lament that spoke of a grief so deep it felt elemental. And the words? Hearing them through the cold medium of a studio monitor, they sounded ancient, formal, and heavy with a sorrow that a 3-year-old could not possibly comprehend. A chill snaked down my spine. This wasn't a child's invention. This was something else. Something that had been learned. But where? And when? My professional curiosity morphed into a frantic, all-consuming obsession. I am a man who solves puzzles with sound, and this was the ultimate sonic mystery. I meticulously transcribed the melody. I used phonetic software to try and approximate the spelling of the words. I sent the recording and my notes to everyone I knew in the academic world, linguists at the university, ethnomusicologists I'd collaborated with, even folklorists. The responses were a frustrating chorus of bewilderment. The melody had hints of Celtic and Nordic folk traditions, but didn't match any known song. The language was the true enigma. It wasn't Gaelic. It wasn't Norwegian. It wasn't a dialect of any living language they recognized. One professor of linguistics wrote back, "David, it's fascinating. It has the grammatical structure of a North Germanic language, but with phonetic drift I've never encountered. It's almost as if it evolved in complete isolation for centuries. Frankly, it sounds dead. Dead." The word echoed in my mind. How could my daughter be singing in a dead language? Megan's concern was more practical. She saw my obsession, the late nights I spent poring over linguistic databases, the way my own work was suffering. "Maybe it's a form of glossolalia, David," she suggested, using her calm, clinical voice. "A neurological quirk. We should get her checked out." But I knew it wasn't that. This wasn't random sounds. It was a song. It had verses. It had a repeating refrain, and Clara understood it. When she sang it, her emotional state perfectly matched the musical phrasing. She would emphasize the sorrowful notes with a genuine sadness in her own voice. Small breakthrough came from the professor, who had called the language dead. He sent me a follow-up email. "On a long shot," he wrote, "it might be a relic language from an extremely isolated population." There were projects in the mid-20th century to archive the speech of the last remaining speakers of such dialects. Most of these archives are obscure, undigitized, and buried in university basements. It's a needle in a haystack, but it's the only haystack I can think of. He gave me a list of academic archives. And so my descent began. For months I lived a shadow life, spending my nights navigating the arcane, poorly designed websites of university anthropology departments and linguistic archives. I listened to hundreds of hours of recordings, crackling audio of old men and women from remote mountainsides, forgotten fishing villages, and dying island communities, their voices the last echoes of their entire culture. I heard languages that sounded like rushing wind, like cracking ice, like birdsong. None of them matched. The obsession was putting a strain on my marriage, on my own sanity. Megan begged me to stop. "She's a happy, healthy little girl, David. Let it be her mystery. Let it be her magic." I was about to give up. I was exhausted, defeated. I decided to try one last time. I isolated the clearest phrase from the lullaby, a recurring line that sounded like "Na minna veger." I typed the phonetic approximation into the search engine for a massive pan-European ethnographic sound archive. I didn't expect to find anything, but a single result appeared on the screen. A file name, E74B, Lament for a Lost Child. Rec. 1963, Isle of Stroma. Language, Stroman Norse, extinct. My heart stopped. I clicked the link. A pop-up window appeared, with a grainy black and white photo of an old woman with a face like a weathered sea cliff. Below, it was a media player. With a trembling hand, I pressed play. A crackling, tinny sound filled my studio. And then the old woman began to sing Dot. It was Clara's song. The melody, the words, the heartbreaking sadness. It was all there. A perfect, ghostly match. I listened, frozen, as this voice from over, half a century ago, sang the lullaby that my daughter sang every night in her bed. I scrolled down the page. There was a text file attached, field notes and translation. I opened it. The notes described Stroman Norse as a unique dialect spoken only by the inhabitants of a tiny, remote island off the northern coast of Scotland, an island that had been completely abandoned in 1962. The recording was of the last native speaker of the language, a woman named Elspeth Dot, and then I saw the translation of the lament. My eyes scanned the words, and the world fell away. Dot. It was not a song to soothe a child to sleep. It was a dirge. A mother's song for her child who had been taken by the sea. Sleep now, my treasure, sleep now, my love. Na minna veger na. Minna sure, the waves will not have you, the sea will not have you. The cold water took your hand from mine. The gray storm stole the light from your eyes. But sleep now, my darling, under the foam. I will sing to you until I come home. Sleep now, my Clara. Beyond the waves, I will find you again. After all of my days. Clara. The name in the final verse was Clara. I pushed back from my desk. A strangled cry caught in my throat. I stumbled out of my studio, out of the house, and into the backyard, gasping for air. The song wasn't a comfort. It was a memory. The beautiful melody was the soundtrack to a drowning. My daughter's drowning. How do you live with that knowledge? How do you listen to your child sing herself too? Sleep with a detailed account of her own death? The music in my life died that day. I couldn't compose. Every chord I played sounded hollow. Every melody felt like a lie. All I could hear was that lament. The song became a source of pure terror. Whenever Clara would start to hum it, I would have to leave the room, my heart pounding, my skin cold with sweat. I never told Megan. How could I? How could I tell my wife, a doctor who dedicated her life to saving children, that our daughter carried within her the ghost of a child who couldn't be saved? How could I taint her beautiful, loving relationship with Clara with this unbearable sorrow? So I carried the secret alone. Last night, Clara came down with a fever. Megan was checking her temperature, and Clara, delirious and miserable, began to sing her song. Her voice weak and reedy. Megan, trying to comfort her, started to hum along. The sound of it, so innocent, so loving, was like a physical blow. I flinched, a sharp, involuntary gasp. The humming stopped. Clara, her eyes bright, with fever, turned her head on the pillow to look at me. A moment of perfect, unnerving clarity passed over her small face. She looked at me, not as a confused 3-year-old, but as someone much, much older. She finished the line of the song herself, in that long-dead language. Then, in perfect, clear English, her voice a soft whisper, she said, "It's okay, Daddy. The water isn't cold anymore." And she closed her eyes and fell asleep. I am left here now, in a house full of silent instruments. My beautiful, vibrant daughter is a vessel for a sorrow older than I am. Her soul is a testament to a grief I cannot possibly comprehend. And I am trapped by a question that has become the new, terrifying soundtrack of my life. If my daughter's soul remembers the moment she died, what other memories are waiting within her, beneath the waves of her childhood, waiting for the day they can finally break the surface?